Are you fed up with warm, uplifting stories and want to amplify the misery and dreariness of the winter months? Say no more! Here are 5 downers to make you forget the meaning of happiness. The Lodge is a psychological slow-burn horror which follows a woman named Grace who joins her fiancé's 2 children for a winter getaway in a remote holiday village. The children are still grieving the loss of their mother and are reluctant to accept Grace as future stepmom. When the father suddenly has to leave for a few days, the kids and Grace are left alone, and things begin to feel deeply, unsettlingly wrong. Inexplicable events start happening, pointing at a supernatural force. But is there something or someone else toying with them? The rift between the kids and Grace widens further as the kids dig into Grace's past. What starts as emotional discomfort mutates into psychological horror, where reality itself is questionable. Almost the entire film takes place in the isolated, snowbound lodge. The rooms are very dark and cold. The frozen landscape isn't just a backdrop. It presses in on the characters, amplifying their silence, distrust, and doubts. The tension simmers slowly. The atmosphere is suffocating, relentlessly grim, and makes you feel trapped with the characters in this dark, unwelcome place. The Lodge is for you if you enjoy slow, uncomfortable stories that trust the audience and refuse to offer relief or comfort. The Blackout's Daughter is a blend of psychological and occult horror from director Osgood Perkins and starring Kiernan Shipka, Lucy Boynton, and Emma Roberts. Set at a Catholic boarding school, the film follows 2 students who are left behind with a few staff members during winter break. As the days stretch on, strange behaviors, unsettling conversations, and a growing sense of dread take hold. Running parallel to this is the story of a young woman traveling alone through frozen roads, her journey gradually brushing against the events at the school. It is difficult to say anything more about the plot without spoilers, so I'll leave it at that. The film reveals its mysterious story in fragments, encouraging the viewer to piece together connections about the girls and what their intentions are. The nearly abandoned boarding school surrounded by snow and silence, paired with bleak roadside locations, makes for an eerie, mournful, and cold atmosphere. The horror is quiet and patient, with surprising outbursts of violence, leading up to an unexpected and intriguing ending. It will leave you haunted and with a few questions to ponder over. The Children is a low-budget British psychological thriller slasher blend from director Tom Shankland. This film is for those who like dark, disturbing, mean-spirited horror that refuses to soften its blows. Elaine and Jonah, their teenage daughter and 2 younger kids, come to spend New Year with Elaine's sister and her family at their isolated country home. One by one, the children, after apparently being sick, first become withdrawn, agitated, and defiant, then increasingly hostile toward the adults. Since the roads are closed, no help can come from outside, so the adults have to find ways to manage the danger in a home invasion scenario where the danger comes from within. The beginning of the film starts off mild and promises little, with the usual family tensions and games in the snow, but trust me, the direction it takes becomes quite unsettling. The cruelty and violence shocked me, because they go both ways, not sparing the kids. The way the children are portrayed is not stereotypical. There is realism and creepiness to them that chilled me to the core. I would call this film the personification of the anti-Christmas spirit. Violent, grim, emotionally brutal, and merciless. Set in Iceland in the late 1800s, The Damned is a psychological, supernatural folk horror directed by the Icelandic film director Thordur Pálsson. Eva, the owner of a fishing post, makes an impossible choice when in the middle of an especially cruel winter, a ship sinks off the coast of her isolated settlement. Not wanting to risk the lives of her fishermen, she decides not to intervene, but to gather supplies from the wreckage afterwards. Soon, bodies start washing up on their shore, bringing with them strange occurrences, rising paranoia, and a mounting sense of dread. Tormented by guilt, the fishermen begin to believe they're all being punished for their choices by an Icelandic creature of folklore. This is a slow burn, but keeps you on your toes constantly. For a long while, you actually have no idea what's happening. There are scenes that properly spook the life out of me. It is creepy, mysterious, and haunting. The feeling of sadness and desperation only deepens through the film's gorgeous cinematography of the vast, frozen, and unforgiving landscape. This one is for those who love atmospheric horror built around isolation, guilt, folklore, and the dark side of human survival. Based on the novel by Cormac McCarthy, The Road is a survival drama and post-apocalyptic horror that follows an ailing father and his young son traveling across a devastated post-apocalyptic America. It stars Viggo Mortensen, Cody Smith-McPhee, Charlize Theron, Robert Duvall, and Guy Pearce. Civilization has collapsed, and the world is devoid of all life forms. Plants and animals have disappeared, food is scarce, and survival depends on staying one step ahead of both starvation and other people. As they move south through abandoned towns and dead forests, the story becomes less about where they are going and more about whether it's still possible to remain human in a world that has lost all humanity. The father's courage and determination to provide a life for his son seem futile, and every small moment of tenderness feels fragile and temporary. The director, John Hillcoat, has created a gray, ash-covered version of the United States, where snow, burned-out cities, empty highways, and ruined homes create a landscape that feels more like a graveyard than a country. Relentlessly bleak and emotionally exhausting, this is the kind of horror built from hunger, cold, fear, and the sense that survival is both impossible and senseless. This film is for those who want their horror grounded in realism and despair, where love is the only light in a harsh, dead world. The Road will give you the existential frostbite. Prepare your tissues. Just saying.